Overseeing a website can present a challenge for any college, no matter the size. There's a large amount of unstructured information that needs to be created, updated, and managed, and all this needs to be done with limited staff and resources. We understand your concern about taking on the challenge of a website. This presentation will outline an approach to help you feel more at ease with the whole process. This approach is known as content governance. Content governance yields a simple but important benefit to your website users: a better experience when they're searching for information. That's why you use it. Their searches are faster, more productive, and yield more accurate, relevant information. Now, it's important for you to make use of technology throughout this process. We would advise that your institution invest in a content management system, or CMS. CMS is software that provides website authoring, collaboration, and administration tools that allow your contributors to create and manage the website content with relative ease. Now let's look more closely at the concept of content governance, which can be broken down into 4 stages: request, create, manage, and retire. Let's begin with the request phase. First of all, you need to identify ownership. In this particular example, the individual and his group or department claims ownership of a particular section of the website. Through the ownership, they are saying that they will oversee the content. Now, at the same time, your CMS will track the content, and this will allow you to know where it is, when it was last updated, and also the CMS will identify the ownership so that information is all available to you. The request phase also involves identifying resources. The requester needs to ask himself or herself 2 basic questions. He needs to consider the skill set and time involved for a particular request, and also needs to identify any gaps in resources or education. In terms of skill set or time, that would be determining this project is going to take X amount of hours, and let's say you've got a biology professor that is going to take on the landing page for the biology department of your college. Through this process, he identifies that he thought he could do it himself, but no, it turns out he needs the help of 2 graduate assistants who both will need master's degrees in order to produce the content that he needs. So in this way, the requester has certainly identified gaps in resources and education that will need to be dealt with. The request phase also involves identifying success criteria. And that is, what is the intended goal, and should the project and content continue to exist if the goal is no longer being met? The problem at a college is that you can have different ideas of what success criteria is. For example, with the biology landing page, the administration, for some reason, might feel that the content is no longer relevant and needs to be completely redone, whereas the professor who's doing it has put a lot of time into it and feels very strongly that the content does meet the success criteria because all of the courses that it describes are still offered. So therefore, let's say that was his criteria, that as long as these courses are offered, the content is still valid. This takes us to the create phase, which is actually the fun part of producing the actual content. There are a few things to keep in mind here. One is assigning security information. Different stakeholders work on different projects. For example, in this first circle, the security information might be assigned differently for the administration as opposed to security information assigned for students. It all depends on what you would want the administration to be allowed access to. Well, I shouldn't say access because that really gets into this step. But what information you would like to have a security assigned for the administration as opposed to students. It all depends on their work on different projects on the website. Access is closely related. This involves making content visible only to the users that it actually relates to. In this particular example, financial and budget information, you might want to only allow access to staff and officials because of the sensitive nature of this information. You need to also assign workflow. This is very important in a college environment because many different stakeholders need to review content before it goes live on the website. In this particular example, the administration reviews all content and gives its okay before it goes to legal, who also must review before and approve before the final editorial style is applied to the content. And then, and only then, can it finally go live on the website after following this established workflow. The manage phase. Has your content expired? This really focuses on updating the content, particularly around the ownership. The most common problem is a content creator leaves or changes roles. For example, a biology professor leaves after the current school year. What will happen to all that content that he was monitoring? And then finally, as we said, updating the content, the big problem, the creator leaving or changing roles. And finally, the retire phase. This involves cutting out content items that are no longer relevant by deleting or archiving them. Any content that did not meet the success criteria from the request phase that we talked about earlier should be considered for deletion. For example, on our biology landing page, you would want to check and make sure that in the course descriptions, as we said earlier, are all those courses still offered? Because if they're not, that content, you may want to delete it. You probably would want to delete it because the courses are no longer offered, and so therefore the success criteria is no longer being met. We hope that this presentation is helpful for you and that you found it useful in understanding the idea of content governance. We think that by adopting these strategies at your institution, your team can successfully manage the information on your website and address the needs of your multiple stakeholders. In the end, you will ensure an efficient, productive experience for the users of your website, which, of course, is your ultimate goal. Thank you very much.